Airfix 1:72 scale Spitfire Mark 1A. So here we go, 1/72 scale Spitfire, and it looks pretty good so far. Panel lines look nice and crisp, and now we have the other main piece of sprue, which is the wings and pilot and other little bits and pieces. Hello, I'm BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I will be looking at the Airfix 1:72 scale Spitfire Mark 1A. 72nd scale being quite a compact scale. It's quite a favourite amongst aircraft modelers because if you collect a lot and you like a lot of aircraft, they don't take up too much room, and you'll be able to collect fighters and bombers, and they won't be too hard to handle. And 72nd scale, particularly Spitfire, I think is a great choice for a beginner. Now with these particular World War II fighters, or warbirds as you call them, there's not too many components, and I think the subject matter is quite interesting too. Particularly the Spitfire is very famous, and Mark 1s being very popular and known during the Battle of Britain. So let's have a look at what this kit is all about. Now this is not an ancient Airfix kit. This is actually well, the molds were cut in 2010, so it's reasonably modern, and we'll be looking at the kit a bit later to see what the quality is like. So here we go, 1/72 scale Spitfire Mark 1A. What the actual difference is with the Mark 1 and the A, I don't really know. I'm sure there's some Spitfire aficionados out there, they'll be able to tell me, but it is an early Spitfire, and it's such a very recognisable shape of aircraft, and you can see here in the artwork it's been depicted well, I guess maybe shooting down a Bf-110. So that looks very much Battle of Britain style artwork. All right, now on the back, we have an indication of delivery and also the markings that are included. So this particular one is flown by Squadron Leader B Lane, number 19 Squadron, Battle of Britain, September 1940. And you'll see here, there's a little Cartograph symbol, meaning the decals are printed by Cartograph, which is fantastic because Cartograph print the best decals in the world. And quite a lot of manufacturers do use Cartograph for producing their fine decals. What you also see here is you've got a basic paint chart, which is handy, so it's easier to find all the paints if you just want to purchase this and make it into a gift or for yourself. You can see exactly what you need without having to open up the box. Okay, let's have a look inside at the nitty-gritty. What do they give us? All right, so let's just pull this out. We've got the bag of parts, and we've got a manual. Okay, and in the manual, there's also the decals there. So we'll look at that a bit later. Pop that aside. Let's have a closer look at all these parts. And they're quite dark, so I don't think the blue background is going to work that well here. Let's get that away and go with the white. I think that's better. All right, so what do we have here? So we've got two sprue, and we've got a bag of clear parts, and I'll have a closer look later. And that'll probably help by having the blue to see that. Against the white's a bit hard to see. So let's pop that over there first. All right, let's see what we've got. And it looks pretty good so far. Panel lines look nice and crisp. And as I said, the part count is not too difficult. And I think that's great. You can concentrate on, getting the construction right and then the painting of it. Got a nice little pilot figure there too. All right, let's go in deep and have a closer look at this one and see what Airfix is offering us. And straight on, we're looking at the engine cowling. Got some nice rivet detail, and it's quite deep. I mean, some people may not like really deep rivets, but I think for a beginner, and something this small too, I think it helps to get the definition of panel lines, and also help for applying washers. I mean, fine panel lines are all very well, they look more scale, but for a beginner, they're harder to deal with. So use this as a practice model or something that you just want to put together quickly. I think this is really nice. So nice, deep, large panel lines, and they're all throughout the model too. And they've done a good job of getting them all the way to the edge too, because this is a point where you lose a lot of detail. Also the bottom of the tail section of the fuselage there. Okay, so we've got the traditional two halves of the fuselage. You can see the locating points here where the exhausts are going to go. And we go to the smaller parts. We've got an air intake. That I think is the support for the propeller. So that'll go on the inside to allow free movement so it can spin. You can see the spinner there. There's the back of the spinner, and that shaft there will connect to that section which I showed earlier, right there. So it can actually spin in the fuselage. We've got the undercarriage there, and you might notice that it's got flats on it. And that's something which is surprising. I wouldn't have expected that. That's like a pro type of thing. That's what we call weighted tyres. Because as you can imagine, the aircraft is actually very heavy, and when it's sitting on the main wheels, it actually flattens them out. So they're weighted wheels, or weighted tyres is what we call them. So you just need to remember that when you glue these on, that the flats are actually where it sits onto the ground. Here we've got the undercarriage cover doors. We've got some bulkhead sections there for the cockpit. So you can see that'll be the back section where the seat will sit. Here we can see some better detail of the undercarriage doors with the struts. And we can actually see the wheel detail here as well with the flats of the tyres. There's the inside of the spinner. You can see the 3 locating points for the propellers. And there's the propeller there. And that's all moulded in one piece. So you don't have to worry about aligning each one of those props, which some other kits have made you do in the past. There's the pilot seat. You can see the upholstery there. There's nice detail. You can see from my thumb just how small that part is. There's another part of the intake. So there you go. So that's actually really nice detail. So pretty impressive so far. So there's your fuselage. That's nice. And now we have the other main piece of sprue, which is the wings and pilot and other little bits and pieces. And again, let's get in tight and we'll see what all this is like. So again, the panel lines look really nice. Again, they're quite deep and broad, but I think that's okay. You can see the fabric detail on the aileron there. So with fabric detail, I mean, these would have been the support struts across here, the ribbing. And then when the fabric goes over the top, it actually tightens up against it when it gets tensioned. But this is all steel skinning here, so that's why it doesn't have that same look to it. You can see rivet detail there as well in the various panels. So that's really nice. And then you've got the openings for the cannons. You've got the exhausts right there. Big locating pins, easy to fit into the cowl. Here's the other side of the wing. So these are the top sections. And then this side, okay, so we've got the rudder there. Again, you've got that fabric effect. And here's the underside of the wing. And again, some really nice panel lines, really deep. So if you're just practicing doing panel lining, they'll flow through these lines very easily. All right, you've got a tail wheel, a really long support. So it's going to make sure that it's not going to break in a hurry, because I mean the tail wheels are tiny and there's quite a bit of weight on them. We've got some oxygen tanks. Here we've got the undercarriage there as well. So that'll be optional for closed, I'd say. So if you want to make it look like your aircraft is in flight, you'll use these instead of the flat ones I showed you before. You've got the horizontal stabilizers. Again, some nice sharp panel line detail, and then also the fabric stretch detail over the control surface across here. There's an intake for the base of the fuselage. And here's our pilot. That's probably not a very nice view. Let's put it around here. And I think the proportions are really good. It's got a mask on, and it's a full figure as well. All in all, I think this is really nice. Now, what's that bit I missed here? This part here would probably be part of the cockpit, I think. Okay, now what do we have left? We've got the clear parts, which means I'll bring up the blue mat here, and let's have a look at this clear. So they've kept it simple, it's just one piece. So you fully seal in the pilot. Got the armoured glass across the front there, which is quite thick. And on a model this small, it's probably a good idea to have it all sealed up anyway. It keeps a lot of dust out. So it looks like there's the canopy, and then also a little lens there, I think. So it looks like. Okay, there you go. So there's all the bits, and I think the bits all look pretty good. Now let's have a look at the decals, I think. Decals are hiding here. And these are printed by Cartograph, so they'll be super thin. You can see how they're not very shiny, so a nice matte finish already. We've got the instrument decal, which is pretty good. You can see by my thumb, I mean, it's pretty small. And then there's so many tiny little stencil markings, which is nice. They all add interest to the model. This is all the tape which covers up all the cannons. And then you've got your roundels, divisional markings, registration. I think they all look pretty good. All in all, I think this is pretty impressive so far. For a small and basic kit, I think it's pretty good. Let's look at the manual. What do we got here? All right, so we've got a few languages here which give you a basic history lesson on the aircraft. Some specs there as well. Some assembly instructions in different languages. And then there's a legend of different symbols to help you build. And then we'll get into step one. And step one is building the cockpit with the pilot. So you've got this sub-assembly. It's almost like a floating cockpit. And that will be placed inside the fuselage, a sandwich in between. And actually I didn't show you the insides of the fuselage. It actually has some really nice detail. Let's go back to that. Should have shown you that before. Should have spun this around. So here we go there. There's the internal struts and controls which are on the inside. So even with that sub-assembly of the cockpit put in place, you have all this detail that's visible as well, and it gives much more three-dimensional effect. Okay, so let's go back. So we've got all this detail here. We've got the prop. Oh, did I miss a prop? There we go. There's the prop assembly instructions there. And the prop goes on. You can see how there's this little bung thing. It goes on the end of the shaft so that it's not fully glued onto the cowl. That allows the propeller to spin. Next we get into wings and fuselage. So a lot of steps happening in part 4. We've got your base of the wing with the tops of the wings and the fuselage all going into place. Canopy, horizontal stabilizers, and a rudder. And then inside here, you just need to paint these sections. So this is underneath the cockpit, which is visible through the top. And then also the internals of the wing for the undercarriage when it's open. And then we move on to just some of the finer finishing off parts. We've got your options here. These are stowed away undercarriage. And then there's the other struts for it in a landed position. We've got some pilot tube and some, what do you call them? Vents and such. There's a tail wheel. Gets popped into place. A few painting instructions here for the strut. So here's the instructions for the standing aircraft or parked aircraft. Antenna mast. And then an aid to getting the angles correct for the undercarriage. Here and here. Just double check. And there you go, pretty straightforward. And there you go. So I think that is definitely a really good starter kit. So that's the Airfix Supermarine Spitfire Mark 1A. And if you like this review, please give me a like below. And any questions, please pop them in the comments. And if you'd like to see more content, think about subscribing to the channel. There's plenty there to search for, a lot of tutorials and reviews as well. So thank you for joining me.